first leg of the journey. There we go. Bike sorted, hopefully. Luggage packed. Paperwork in order. I'm going to go to my first destination. I was struggling for a purpose for this current trip. And my last trip was a trip to Finland. My brother got married in Finland, so I had a definitive destination. I have a set of old photograph albums at home. The oldest album I have was a trip in the autumn of 1984 on a sailboat. I want to get my head around this document. It's a folder and it says Autumn 1984 Bow Chaser. Let me share it with you. I was 18 years old. I was fresh out of school. I just completed my education and I had a gap year. I put an advert in Yachting World. Ian, limited experience, seeks crewing opportunity. I don't know what I wrote. Before the internet, before mobile phones, before easy communication, so there was a telephone call and my mother would have taken a rough message. The message was that I was to get myself to London and go to the American embassy, because that was the destination of the yacht. To go to America, you had to have a visa in those days. The other issue was I had no credit card, no debit card, no phone banking. I just had no ready access to money. In those days, that money was predominantly done with cash. And they used to use traveller's checks, and you would take them to the bank in your destination and they would give you the corresponding amount of money. My mother gave me all the cash she had, which obviously would have been a minimal amount of money. She gave me a set of traveller's checks and off I went down to London. Passport in hand, went to the American embassy. So in those days you filled out a form. Are you a communist? Are you this? They were very big on communism in the 80s, very big. You had to say where you were going to in America, when you would arrive, how long you'd be there, how you would finance your visit, when you would be leaving. So I filled out the form. So I didn't know when I was getting there, didn't know where I was going to. I just knew the name of a man who owned the boat. Basically, I couldn't answer half of the questions on the form. So you submit your form and they get all the undesirables, myself included, who didn't fit the criteria, and they get you to come back at the end of the day. So I wasted my day in London, and then I had a face-to-face interview with a member of staff from the American embassy. Obviously, I was able to tell them the story, and I said to them, if you go and purchase a copy of the Yachting World magazine, you'll see my advert, etc, etc, etc. So anyway, I got myself a visa. I then got on a train down to Southampton. I then got on a taxi to the marina, and then in the marina, somehow I was able to meet the man who owned the boat. Right, here we are, minutes away, 3.5 minutes away. Stop number 1. Fantastic. I've not been here for 40 years. Welcome to Mercury Yacht Harbour. Main entrance on the right here. See if I can find somewhere to park up. Might as well get a view, hadn't I? Mercury Yacht Harbour. Here's my first destination. What a bizarre interaction. So I've come down here to relive a trip that I did 40 years ago. I've just, as a matter of courtesy, I didn't just start filming. I went to the main office, which is behind me, because it's polite, told them my story and asked if I could film, because that's the way it should be done. Met the gentleman in the office who, it was bizarre. He wouldn't authorise me to film here, and he ummed and he ahed, and then I literally said, what happens if I stand over there with the boats as a background, and did a bit to camera? And he said, well, that's public, you can stand there. And was bizarre. Well, doesn't bode awfully well for the trip, does it? If the first place you try to come to, they're not cooperative. I even had a brochure, genuinely. I had that brochure that was in the photograph album. This was where we picked the boat up from. Mercury Yacht Harbour on the River Hamble near Southampton, and this was a brochure from the period. So I found my marina. I found the owner of the boat. He lived in a castle in Scotland, and he was obviously very proud of this. For some reason, he met this stranger, this 18-year-old boy. He gave me postcards and photographs, aerial photographs of his castle, and gave me his card, which in hindsight's a bit strange. You tell people you've got a castle in Scotland. Do you give strange 18-year-old boys postcards and aerial photos of your castle? I don't know. Perhaps he never actually really owned the castle. That's why he wanted to tell me he'd got a castle and show me postcards to make his story real. Why did the owner have the boat? The story was that the exchange rate between the UK and America, the financial exchange rate, was such that if he bought a boat in the UK, if he took it across to America, he could quadruple his money. So the owner employed this guy, Dave, to be the captain of the boat. Dave was, what was he, mid-30s perhaps? He had a wife and 3 kids. He had literally just passed his yacht master's qualification. Therefore, I'm assuming he was the cheapest person in the book, because he was the least experienced person in the book. Then we met Reese. Reese was Dave's mate. Reese had no sailing experience. I had very, very little sailing experience, and most of it was dinghy sailing experience. So Reese and Dave were basically, they were a couple of dope smokers who used to sit around smoking and drinking, and that was their relationship. As I say, Reese really was not a sailor. The yacht, the boat, from memory, was a 41-foot ketch, and I think a ketch has 2 masts. It had a 6-foot bowsprit at the front. So the first chapter of the story takes place on the River Hamble. The owner left, and then there was the 3 of us who were ready to start on our adventure. To sail this boat from Southampton to Miami, across the Atlantic. The night before we set sail, I remember it so much. I was so nervous, anxious, excited. I don't think I slept a minute the entire evening because there was so much emotion. So we set sail for America, only to find out that the battery wouldn't take any charge. I don't know, but it was a mess. And again, I don't know how long it took, but 40 years ago. But we ended up in Poole. And we ended up in Poole because basically Dave and Reese lived in Poole, but the boat needed to be fixed and made good before we then went on our next part of the journey. Let's have a look. We met in Southampton. We then went to Poole, and here's Poole Quay. We moored somewhere in Poole. Right, just about to arrive at my second destination. So I'm heading for Poole Quay. In that photograph album I have a postcard from Poole Quay, and I know we were around here because there's a pub down there called the Lord Nelson. I remember going to the pub with the lads, Dave and Reese, one evening. But do you know, we might have spent the first night at Poole Quay and then moved on to a marina, but we definitely ended up in a marina down in Poole. From memory, we spent best part of a fortnight in Poole. I'm not sure anything was really fixed. I'm not sure anything was resolved. And this is October perhaps, and the weather's starting to turn. What happened was the yacht was on a pontoon, but it was bow first. So he decided, well, we had to reverse out, turn around, and then get going. So he's got the boat reversing. Well, boats like that are designed to sail, not to motor. Rudders don't work when they're going back, and often these sort of boats will have bow thrusters to sort of push the boat around on its bow. This one didn't have a bow thruster. Anyway, Dave's got the boat coming back, and it's a windy old day. I can't quite remember what happened, but we got out, and then the wind caught the front of the boat, and the boat's got no stability. And basically this bowsprit that's stuck out, there's all these boats, and it literally, the bowsprit just went at the back of all of these boats, half a dozen boats. And at the back they've all got these metal stanchions, perhaps they're called, and outboards and barbecues and things like that. And this dirty, great big structural bowsprit just went along smashing. And we damaged half a dozen boats because the boat was out of control, and the weather was taking it, not the captain was taking it. So we then obviously had to report this, and then we had to tell the insurance firm, and then the insurance firm had to come and do an assessment of the damage and the circumstances. So that took another 3 or 4 days. So next stop will be Portsmouth to get the ferry to Cherbourg. Well, here we go. Brittany Ferries, there we go, Brittany Ferries, Portsmouth to Cherbourg. I don't know what the time is, my clock don't work. I guess it's 10 o'clock or just gone 10. And it's an absolutely lovely evening, and I'm sure the ferry will be, and the crossing will be flat. It's a very big, clean ferry, isn't it just?
Nous demandons à tous les passagers motorisés de bien vouloir éteindre leur système d'alarme et de mettre leur frein à main. Merci de votre coopération. Your attention please. For everybody's comfort and to avoid any flat batteries, please could all car passengers turn off the alarm system and ensure the handbrake is fully applied. We thank you for your cooperation. Señoras y señores, rogamos que los pasajeros con vehículo apaguen su sistema de alarma.
And here's our weary traveller. I'm going to sort my life out and go to bed shortly. Have a nice evening. This is a fantastic way to start a holiday, isn't it? Well, not between two lorries, but sunshine, no wind, 8:30 in the morning, absolutely perfect. Finally, we set sail and go across to France. The English Channel is one of the busiest shipping routes in the world. It has masses and masses of traffic, but this isn't holiday traffic. This is massive ships that take quarter of a mile to slow down, ships that are just in dedicated lanes, and you've got a lane for going that way and a lane for coming this way. We are sailing across the shipping lanes, so the shipping lanes are in this direction and we're sailing across. At night, we've got no lights whatsoever. We've got no navigation lights. We're a tiny weeny boat. We're in the middle of this traffic that can't manoeuvre and, well, can't see us, can't manoeuvre and can't stop. And I recall we literally had a flashlight torch and we're shining the torch on the sails in the vain hope that perhaps somebody who's 100 foot high in a super tanker can see and they're not going to crash into us. And when you're 18, you just go with the flow. But in hindsight, it was just truly negligent. So we got across the shipping lanes and we got to the French coast. First place abroad we went to was this Abervac. It's in Brittany. It's on the northern coast. Here's the text that was written on the first of the two Abervac postcards. Dear Nana and Grandpa, I'm very sorry I could not come to your 25th wedding anniversary. I hope you had a very good day. After much delay, we finally got the boat ready to sail. Today we arrived in Abervac in the northwest corner of France. There are 3 of us sailing on a 47-foot luxury yacht. It has everything, including radar, auto helm, electronic logs, 2-way radios and 2 showers. Next we go to Spain, Portugal and the Azores, and finally Miami in the USA. Love, Ian. I must have forgot to mention the fact that the electrics weren't working. And the second of the Abervac postcards. This was addressed to my mother and my brother. Today we arrived in Abervac in the northwest corner of France. It is a great little place. We are moored actually in the area of the photo on the card. Being at sea is an unbelievable experience. It took me 24 hours to get over my seasickness, and after that it was great but very tiring. Each time we go to a nearby town we hitchhike, so I can now say I've hitchhiked in France, which is very easy. Love, Ian. I've just driven through from Cherbourg through Normandy. I think I'm probably in Brittany now, but I'm en route for my first destination, which is going to be Abervac. I'm now 5 minutes away from my campsite, but I'm going to go to the campsite, I'm going to get myself sorted, and then I hope to go into Abervac and see if I can remember anything. Bearing in mind it's been 40 years since I was here. There's my cheeky little campsite. Sat under a tree. Absolutely lovely. So a look in here. All the things I guess you'd need for a lovely night's sleep. Tent, motorcycle. I've put Abervac on my sat-nav and it's 5.5 minutes away. So let's go down and check out the village, see if I remember anything. We'll have a look. We'll see if the postcards will make any reference to real life. Probably not, but you know, at least I've visited. I'm still at the stage on the first day that I'm checking I'm driving on the correct side of the road. Obviously the UK drives on the opposite side of the road, and it does lead to confusion. Oh yeah, straight ahead perhaps. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, look, the port of Aberfach. Parking Grand Public. Well, I guess I'm a Grand Public. Right, look at this. So I'm assuming this is where I moored, generically, all those years ago. I really am. This is where I'm sure. Look, they've been diving, presumably. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? November 84, I would have been in a boat in this very marina. Let's have a look. Yeah, Bureau de Port. Obviously that's where you check in and do your passport and your customs and what have you. A little yacht club. Oh yeah. So look here. Port to Aberfach. Oh, it's rather nice on a day like this, isn't it? We've got canoeists, windsurfers, slight breeze. Perhaps it's a school. Perhaps, yeah, perhaps these are the kids and they've got a summer school. Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? It's just before 7 in the morning. Let me show you that. I don't know whether you can see the sunrise behind me. What I didn't realise, probably because of a lack of planning, is geographically how far Aberfach is stuffed away in the northwest corner of France. It's geographically miles away, absolutely miles away. So I'm up early because I've got to do some miles, because obviously I'm heading south. Now, a couple of things to note here. Not only have we got no electrics, and we had little paraffin lamps in the galley and in the main seating area, so we had no electricity. It also took on water. Presumably it was bought cheap to take across to America to sell, blah blah blah. So it took on water. There was not, I kid you not, there was not a dry berth on the boat. Every single bed was wet in some form because of drips and leaks. Because there was no power, because the batteries weren't taking a charge, it had water coming in, and the water collects in the bilge, and in a boat you will have a specific area at the bottom that's designed to catch water. You'll then have a pump that's designed to pull the water out. The pump, however, is electrically operated. Well, we had no electrics, so you had to manually, using a lever, you had to manually pump the water out. Furthermore, during this period of loitering in Brittany and France, there was a drawer, and in the drawer was a handgun, a pistol. Lots of countries in the world, you know, in America, handgun ownership is absolutely massive. If you live in the UK, the only people who have handguns are the police, the border control, and criminals and gangsters. you just do not have ownership of handguns in the UK. It's just so abhorrent and so wrong to us. Anyway, there's a handgun on the boat. Quite why, I don't know, because this does not fit the UK. It's day 2 and I'm going to arrive at my destination, which is my second campsite, in 17 minutes time. I basically just headed south and the weather's got brighter and the grass has lost its lush green colour. So to recap, the characters in the story were the owner of the boat, who may or may not have had a castle in Scotland. There was Dave, who had a yacht master qualification. There was Reese, who sold himself as an international playboy and had no sailing experience. There was then myself, an 18-year-old boy, who again had no sailing experience. So it was a right old mess. I switched off my Garmin sat-nav like I normally would. Now I can't switch it back on, which is a bit of a bummer. Normally, obviously, you press the on button and not a dicky bird. It don't feel as if the button is engaging. I might get a penknife and cut it out and see if I can see something. Okay, Swiss Army knife, and there's nothing I can do. It's basically a waterproof seals unit. Probably end up cutting myself, won't I? I don't know how well you can see. I've cut a hole and here's the micro switch. So perhaps if I use something to hit the micro switch, press and hold. It's not happy. If I didn't know better, my navigation's broken. I do have a phone. I'm not used to using the phone for navigation, that's the problem. One more try. No, it just won't fire up. Press it repeatedly. Oh! Yeah, perhaps it's just got a dodgy switch. Yeah, look, so it's definitely working. Let's recap on what's going on. I'm in Navarra, northern Spain. I've just spent the last two and a half hours on the toll roads. I wouldn't normally use a toll road and I wouldn't normally sit on a motorway. A toll road is inherently dull. If you're on a 400cc single dirt bike with full camping kit, it's extremely dull. Anyway, I'm now on smaller roads, but I'm heading for Estella. One of the joys of solo travel is you're approachable. Because you're solo, you're approachable. Just met this gentleman called Alex. Literally, he's just parked up next to me and we're having a chat. He's a wonderful man and he's got such an interesting story to tell. I'm going to spin the GoPro round and you can meet Alex. Introduce yourself, please, sir.
Yeah, of course. My name is Alex and I come from Senegal. So
Senegal.
Yeah, from Senegal.
You're en route.
One way, two way.
And you're going to France tonight.
Yeah.
And you're in Senegal.
Yeah.
That is just fantastic.
And that's the end of my trip.
And then you're at the end of your trip. And what was the highlight of your trip? What was the best bit?
In Mauritania.
Tell me why.
The desert in Mauritania. It's really beautiful. Really, yeah. That's the best place of my trip, I think. For the moment.
For the moment. And were you camping all trip?
Yeah, camping. Yeah. With my mattress, my tent, and but when I'm really tired, sometimes I sleep in the hotel for shower, for AC, you know. It's
Yes,
better
yes.
for the head.
Absolutely fantastic. Delightful to have met you. Well, best of luck, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you for chatting.
Thank you.
Bye bye. I just literally stood on the side of the road and this biker stopped, said hello, and he's literally on his way back to France, having had a month trip, going down to Spain, getting the ferry across to Morocco. Then he went to Mauritania and he saw the big, is it an iron ore train? He saw the iron ore train. And then he went to Senegal, including Dakar, and what a lovely, humble person. So once again, the decision is made that we need to set sail in this boat. So the idea was that we were going to go round the northwest corner of France. We were then going to go diagonally across the Bay of Biscay, and then we were going to sort of stop in Spain with the view, I think, to then sailing from Spain to the Azores, which is a set of islands. Is it a quarter of the way across the Atlantic, and then doing the next 3/4 as a single push. So we set sail, and it was a shift. So there was three guys, and you did 3 hours of helming, of actually sailing the boat and looking after the boat. You then theoretically had 6 hours off. Obviously within that time you're helping, you're chatting, you're cooking, and you're doing you're plotting your path and things. But Reese and I haven't got a clue what we're doing anyway. You know, Dave just put it in a direction and we just sit in that direction because we haven't got the confidence to change it. It was grim. This is November. This is in the Bay of Biscay. Biscay is notorious for its swell and its bad weather. So you've got the prevailing currents and winds that are coming from Miami, from the Caribbean. It's called the North Atlantic Drift, and they come from Miami and they come from the Caribbean, and they're coming up towards northern Europe. Biscay, I believe, has a shelf, so you've got the deep water of the Atlantic, and then you've got this Biscay that's the shelf. And the way it works is that all the winds and the current, when it gets to the shelf, it produces these massive waves. It's notorious for being choppy water. And it's November, and we haven't got a clue what we're doing. And there's no electricity, and it's taking on water, and the bilge pumps is manual. It was just grim. And it was cold, you know, it was November. Anyway, I'm in my, it's dark. It's the middle of the night and it's dark. I'm in my bunk. Reese has finished his 3 hours, and the idea was that you woke up the person who was doing the next 3 hours watch, and you woke them up with a cup of coffee. Reese came down, made a cup of coffee, woke Dave up and said, here's your coffee, mate, you know, 10 minutes and you're on, sort of thing. Anyway, and I'm watching this. What ensued was a fist fight. I don't know how it worked, I don't know what provoked it, I don't know how it happened, but basically Dave and Reese had a fist fight in the middle of the night, in the dark, because there's no, you know, there's paraffin lights, but it's dark. Anyway, the bottom of the boat is now got bilge water over the bottom on the floor. Well, the bilge water also has got oil and muck in it. Dave slipped, and then he told us that he'd broken his arm. So Dave went back to bed with a broken arm. Reese and I went up to sail this boat. Reese hadn't got a clue what he was doing. I hadn't got a clue what we were doing, and it was pitch black. So we're heading down Biscay towards the northern coast of Spain. Pitch black. Don't know what we're doing. What I recall was, I think they are sardine fishing. So there's all these little lights which we don't think are land, we think are boats. Well, that's making sense. We're going straight down, and then you've got all these little sardine fishing boats. However, a sardine fishing boat presumably has a dirty great big net out the back and has ropes and can't stop and change direction because it's got the bulk of all this nets. So Reese and I are looking for opportunities, and Reese turned to me and I said, well look, my schoolboy geography says if you're going down Biscay you've got to turn right, because ultimately you'll go through the fishing boats and hit the land, so you've got to turn right and head off out towards sea. But we had to do this before we got to the fishing boats because we didn't want to get caught up in them and their nets and what have you. So anyway, we did it and we turned right and we sailed through the dark, and we could see the fishing boats on our left, and we sailed through the dark. Can't quite remember. And then I feel we almost turned the corner to head south down towards Portugal. Anyway, it was then starting to get light, and we'd been sat out there for hours and we hadn't got a clue what we're doing. Anyway, who appears but Dave. Dave obviously hadn't broken his arm. It was now daylight, or becoming daylight, and Dave decided it was his turn to take charge and his turn to help us out. So Dave came up on deck, and Dave the captain took control of the boat. It's daylight, Dave is in charge because he hasn't broken his arm, and we're feeling a lot better. So Dave took control of the boat, and Dave took us to Bayona, to this little village Bayona on the northwest coast of Spain, very close to the Portuguese border. So we came in, we secured the boat, and we stopped. All of us were shell-shocked. Reese and David had a fist fight. The boat wasn't seaworthy, but they were still planning on taking this boat to Miami. Absolutely stunning view. Here we go, look in front of me here. Grapes absolutely everywhere. Yes, on my left, straight in front, on my right. Yes, this must be the side that catches the sun. Wow. Good morning. It's just gone 8 o'clock. Normally I'm on the road by now. However, I don't know whether you can hear, but it's raining today. Rain is always the motorcyclist's favourite. Today was the day that I was going to go to Bayona and Portugal. I'm hoping that the rain will be gone in an hour. I can have a leisurely start. We then sailed off across Biscay and went to a place called Bayona. So there's a couple of Bayona cards. 2 more Bayonas, I'm suggesting. That was some castle place that you could stay in from memory. I don't know, I've not looked at this photograph album in years. A sailor, a salty sea dog sailor, just views of Bayona Harbour estuary. Myself and Dave on the boat there. Pictures to show I was a young man. Here's me and Reese. Again, me and Reese. What's happened here is I forgot that I had a hole in my sat-nav which I cut some time ago. It's now raining, so this gentleman here has got some sticky tape on his trowel, gracias, and I'm going to put some of his... Oh, I've got a scissor, mate. Oh, look what's going to happen here. And he's going to stick, look at that. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's just fantastic. Hey, gracias, senor.
Nada.
Hey, perfect. That's rock and roll, isn't it? Yeah, muy bien. See, there's a solution to every problem, isn't there? Look, some of his trowel, can I... Look at that. That's part of the handle of his trowel. Gracias, senor.
Nada, hombre.
Right, fantastic. Vamos. Right, I'm 5 minutes away from Bayona. Oh look, that looks like the marina then, doesn't it? Oh gosh. Made it. And the sun has come out. There might be a barrier there. Right, let's have a look. Let's have a look. I think I will park up. I seem to have made it. Here I am, here in the background, hopefully you can see, is the yacht marina in Bayona, which was my final destination on the sailing boat basically 40 years ago when I was 18 years of age. Right then, I've just been to the office and had a chat with the man in the office who's kindly said I can go and have a little walk round, check it out, see what's what. Let's go and have a little look. So, that... Oh, there's a second marina. There's a second marina over there. Not sure. Thing is, when I came here, it was 40 years ago. On these photos, you see, the other side of the water is really close. On these pictures, you know, you could almost swim across, whereas here in real life, it's miles away. That categorically, and I don't know how well you can see it, is categorically that castle there. So those two categorically match, but that's a postcard. It's all a bit confusing, isn't it? Unless it was looking this way. Really not sure what's going on. It's 40 years, isn't it? There's probably a message here, isn't there, about revisiting the past and the disappointment of revisiting the past. I don't recognise any of this, do you know what I mean? They're photos in a photograph album. No, this is meaning nothing whatsoever to me, which is a bit disappointing when you've driven all this way. Yes, perhaps there is just, perhaps the moral of this story is not to revisit the past. And the first of the two Bayona postcards. This was sent to my mother and brother. We arrived in Bayona nearly a week ago. Bayona is on the northwest coast of Spain on the border with Portugal. For various reasons, we will be coming home from Spain as soon as we are sent money. There is no real problem at all. I will explain when I get home. Bayona is great. It has narrow cobbled streets with dirty old shops. Love, from Ian. It's interesting, this piece. For various reasons, we will be coming home from Spain. The implication being it's not just me who's coming home, presumably not to worry my mother. And the final Bayona postcard, this one was again sent to my mother and brother. We are still in Bayona and waiting for money. Nobody can contact Mr. Roy, the owner of the boat, who is the person who sends the money. Meanwhile, I'm having an all expenses paid holiday in Spain. Yesterday, I went to Vigo, a nearby city. Vigo will be on the map you've got. Everything is okay, and we're having a great time with the Spanish people and the other boat owners who come for meals, etc. Love from Ian. Next stop, I'm going to just drive down the coast. I'll have a look on the map. I'll drive down the coast and I'll go to Portugal, just so as I've said I've been. And then I've got the drive back to my campsite. You'll have to take it from me, because I bet you can't see. At the top of the phone here, on the Google Maps, it says Portugal. It says 1.7 kilometres Portugal. I believe at the bottom of this hill is a river, the natural boundary between Spain and Portugal. Oh, look on the right. Look at the European stars and the wording which says Portugal. There we go. Tried to get it. Right, let's literally just go to this first place here. It's the end of November. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I've already spent best part of 2 months of my life sat on this boat going nowhere with problems. I was keen to go home for Christmas because that's what 18-year-old kids do, I guess. Dave and Reese were committed, so we went on a bus to buy some parts or to do something, and I recall seeing a UK number plate lorry, and I used to hitchhike at the time, so I thought to myself, if I could find the owner of that lorry, presumably that lorry is going home, and it's going home for Christmas to the UK because it was UK registered, I could perhaps get myself a lift and go back to the UK. Dave and Reese don't really want me to leave the boat because then there's just 2 of them on the boat, so they're not over encouraging me to go. So I hitchhiked. So basically I left Bayona and I hitchhiked down the coast to where I recall the lorry was, and then I knocked on doors and I actually found the lorry driver, and I said, are you returning to the UK shortly? Can I have a lift? And he wasn't. Well, he said he wasn't. He said he wasn't going home before Christmas and he'd be there for some time. Because it was just parked on the side of the road. Anyway, it was what it was. So I then hitchhike back to the boat. It's dark by now because it's November, December, it's on the cusp, and it's dark. Anyway, I got a lift, and there were 2 lads in, and I honestly think it was a Renault 4, and they had the back of the van was it's like an estate car, like a van with windows, and the back of the van was just full of junk, and the one lad sat on the junk and I sat in the passenger seat, and we drove along and there's no language between us. Anyway, the guy in the back put the light on to adjust and to get comfortable because he sat on all this rubbish. I looks round to see what he's doing. Behind the two seats is a shotgun. I'm English, I'm an 18-year-old boy. We don't do shotguns. The only people who do shotguns are farmers. Anyway, he looked at me and he said something. And quite whether he said something positive or negative, I would never know, but I am petrified. We're in the pitch black on some coastal road in northern Spain with these two guys in this Renault 4, whatever it was. Anyway, the next set of lights in a little village hamlet, I said aquí, and I got out and sighed a sigh of relief. And then I must have got another lift back into the town. I can't remember the logistics, but that was that. It was probably very innocent, but it was for me it was terribly scary. Just a quick update. I've had my shower, I've brushed my teeth, I've put on a clean shirt, and the whole world feels better.
You know what? I recognise that name. This is where the two builders were yesterday that gave me the tape to put on my... Oh, they're not here today. But I tell you what I'm going to do. Just for karma, have a look in here. Somewhere in here I've got some chocolate, but I'm going to put the two chocolate bars here. Let's have a look at the name of the builder. There we go. I'm driving from here to the Costa Europa, and I intend to do some little tiny twisty roads and hopefully find some gravel paths and some tracks and head off into the mountains. Well, the road's already got narrower. This is alright. Still going up. In fact, look, there's a cloud line not far away. Wow. Here's a question, guys. What does a biker do when he sees a water crossing? Even if the water crossing isn't going in his direction, what does he do? Well, this is what he does. He gets on his wretched motorbike and he finds an excuse to drive through the water. And then here we go. A second excuse to drive through the water. And there we are. Wow, this is quite pleasant, isn't it?
So one of the issues I had was the fact that I had no access to money. I had a tiny weeny bit of English sterling cash, but fundamentally I had no credit card, no Apple Pay, no access to money. I had these traveller's checks that my mother had given me. The traveller's checks were in my mother's name. So I sat on the boat practicing my mother's signature. I went into the bank, I proudly presented my traveller's checks to ask for some pesetas, which was the Spanish money at the time. Well, obviously the first question they say to you is, well, where's the passport that verifies that they are your traveller's checks? Well, funnily enough, I didn't have my mother's passport with me, and even if I did, it would have been neither use nor ornament. Well, Dave and Reese had obviously knew the story about me going to the bank to try and cash my mother's traveller's cheques. They knew the story about me trying to hitchhike and get a lift off the truck to go back to the UK. But they knew I wanted to go home for Christmas and I was a kid. So anyway, however it worked, they got me a train ticket. So I get on this train and I didn't know any of the logistics, and I must have had a sandwich or something. Well, you've got to get a train from the coast. I'm not sure at the border between France and Spain whether it was the same train or a different train, but I remember sleeping the night on the train with a family. Couchette it's called, and it's a sleeping, and it has bunks. Anyway, the family, because I'm there, just gave me food and looked after me. What I didn't realise was the train came basically to one of the south stations in Paris, and then you had to get the tube, the metro, to the north side of Paris to then get a train to the Channel, to then get a boat. This is before the Channel Tunnel, to get a boat, a ferry boat, to go over to England, to then get another train to London, and then to get a train from London to my home. And this family had obviously worked out that I hadn't got a clue what I was doing and had no languages. So they went up and down the train and they found somebody, this woman, who was going from the south of Paris on the metro to the north of Paris. And literally they introduced me to this woman, and she took me, gave me a ticket, popped me with her on the metro, took me off the metro, took me to the train station, pointed out, she basically just organised me. So then I took a train to the ferry, which was a boat, and then I took the boat to the UK, then I took another train to London, and then I knew what was going on slightly more, and then I took a train from London back to near my hometown, etc., etc. Arriving home the end of the first week of December or whatever it was, ready for the Christmas holiday and the celebration. So that was my first adventure, age 18.
Santander ferry. Right. That looks like the ferry straight in front.
That looks like our cheeky ferry. So the question is, what happened to Dave and what happened to Reese 10 years later, perhaps? On holiday, a motorcycle holiday with some friends, and I saw this man and I thought, oh, that looks like Dave. Anyway, I went up and said hello to him. So Dave and Reese left Spain and sailed to the Azores. Dave's wife and family, wife and 3 children, flew to the Azores. The 6 of them then sailed from the Azores to Miami. I shudder to think how that worked out. When they were in the Azores, again, the owner wasn't giving them any money. So when they got to Miami, they had the boat legally impounded so that the owner had to pay them their wages and pay them their flight home. So anyway, they came back to the UK, and 10 years later I met Dave. I shudder to think, just listening to my own story. Yeah. I'm thinking, how on earth did that happen? And it happened to me. Hopefully it's been entertaining. Thank you.